Hello, everyone. It's Jerry at the Fledge, and welcome to another episode of Every Damn Day. And today I'm sat in the sanctuary of the Fledge. I've got my headset on, brown hair, brown eyes. I'm wearing a Fledge Fest t-shirt. Man, we need to bring Fledge Fest back, I think. So, yeah, we'll be thinking about that now. Today on the show, we have our new friend, but our good friend, Charles. How you doing today, Charles?
Great. Thanks for having me, Jerry.
Well, thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate it very much. I'm excited to talk about your job and where you work and all of that. But I'd love to get into you for a second. So, if you don't mind, will you tell us about you, like where you were born and raised, where you went to school?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I came to Lansing, well, East Lansing specifically, to go to MSU. I graduated back in 2010 with a journalism degree. Before that, I lived in Grand Rapids, but I was born in Chicago, moved to Michigan when I was 10.
Mm.
So I've been all over the Midwest, but
It,
mostly, actually, I realized that I have spent more time in Lansing than anywhere else. So it's kind of
I
almost home to me.
I lived in Grand Rapids for about 10 years on the corner of like Wealthy and Benjamin, if you know where that is, in East
Oh,
Town.
yep,
Yeah.
yep. I have a brother that's kind of lives out there.
Yeah, I lived there before it was kind of bougie, though. It was 20 some years ago, when it was still kind of a little rough. Uh,
Yeah,
but Grand Rapids, they always called Little Chicago. Did you think that, or were you too young?
I was too suburban, honestly. Like I said, I was moved out of Chicago when I was 10, so I wasn't using the L yet, and kind of
Yeah.
lived north in the north suburbs. And then in Grand Rapids, I actually lived in Ada, which is about 15 minutes outside. So
That's where
that was,
Amway's at, right?
yeah, that was where I actually tempted Amway for a summer. Yeah.
How was that?
It was fine. Factory work is factory work. You show up on time, you do the one thing for 8 hours, and then you go home. So it wasn't too
Did
bad.
Did you get to meet Betsy Devos or anybody?
No, they never came out on the floor. I did go to school with one of the bosses, though, but
Mm.
that's not bragging or anything.
Well, one of the cool ones, because what's his name? Robert or Richard started Art Price.
I think it was Richard. Yeah, yeah,
Richard,
yeah.
yeah. So okay, enough about the Devosses. That'll take us on a tangent, I think. Um, so tell us about Chicago to Grand Rapids, or Chicago to Ada to Lansing, or to East Lansing. Now
Mhm.
Lansing. Do you live in Lansing now, or?
Yeah, I lived a few years in East Lansing until I graduated. Then I moved over to the east side, where I still am. Um, After I graduated, I did kind of a lot of odd jobs. I had the really bright idea of graduating during a recession with a
Mm.
journalism degree. Um, so I did a lot of home improvements and a lot of floor refinishing, actually. And I eventually got a job through a friend at Haven House, which is a homeless shelter for families in East Lansing. And I worked there for about 6 years, and working, kind of falling into social services. Really, kind of, I found my calling just kind of accidentally.
So, would you mind expounding a little bit more on Haven House? Because I think they are such a great organization.
Yeah, they are. It's a
Uh,
very small independent shelter, but they serve families who are homeless, um, people who've been evicted or foreclosed on. So, single parent families or two parent families with minor kids are eligible to stay there, and there's no kind of limitations on the age or the genders of the kids, like some other shelters. So
yeah.
they really serve a specific um, cross section of the homeless population. Single dads have nowhere else to go. Moms with teenage kids have nowhere else to go. So it's really a valuable uh, institution of the
Yeah.
greater Lansing area,
And
and their
the
program is just great.
the option to that is what? Like the dad goes to the mission and the kids get separated from him,
Kids got a
or
family, or yeah,
yeah,
I mean, there really can be no other option sometimes.
yeah, and that's why I love Haven House so
Yeah.
much, and I don't mean to focus on that so much, but I think it, you know, you come to East Lansing for journalism. I don't know what your goal was, but it seems like that must have morphed it a little bit.
Just a little bit, yeah. I became less enchanted with journalism as I went on with it, and I wanted to kind of stay in the area, so the opportunities were a little bit limited. Not knocking the Journal or anything. I still buy that off the newsstand, every now and again, especially on Saturdays. But yeah, it just didn't kind of sit. It just didn't feel right with me, even though I was left holding a degree.
Yeah,
So I was just kind of thinking kind of about what I wanted to do. I took the LSAT just on a larf, like a lot of my friends were doing. But yeah, just being able to work with people, I think, and help them when they were kind of in their darkest days, really kind of spoke to me and really gave me a kind of satisfaction that I hadn't felt elsewhere, like during any other job that during any other job or volunteering that I did.
so well, journalism, real quick, super tough right now. I mean,
Yeah.
you gotta everybody's a journalist right now, first of all. So we all think that we can blog or we can start this video YouTube thing and just be a journalist, right? So that's one thing. But then, the fake news and all of the whole continuum there, where people don't even know what to believe and are being tricked constantly. I
Yeah.
mean, that must have been just a nightmare to try to sort out what you wanted to do.
Yeah. There's a lot of, kind of the way that I see, legitimate journalism is that they find anecdotes of greater trends. They see a trend
Mm.
in what's going on in society, and then they try to focus it on an individual and talk to that person about how it's affecting them, and kind of make it a broader issue that maybe can be addressed. But so much of what you see is the outlier. It's not indicative of a larger trend. It's just one
Yeah.
person's opinion that gets amplified, and it's not based in kind of an overarching kind of problem, a systemic problem that
Yeah.
that our society's facing. And I think it's really dulling the whole kind of journalist. Uh,
Yeah.
I'm losing my
It-
words, which is also why I wasn't a very good journalist.
I bet you were a great journalist, but I just, when you say outlier, I see a distribution of data, and I see somebody way out in the tail of that outlier, and then I see, inside the bell curve, if you will. There's tons of distributions, but I'll just say bell curve. People, that's exactly what people expect, so they don't pay attention to it. But when it's an outlier, when it's way out in that tail, you're like, oh shit, what's that? And I'm gonna watch
Yeah,
it.
and
I'm gonna look at it.
that's what gets people to click, and that's what gets different papers their ad revenue. So it's the commercialization in that way that becomes
The
problematic.
the clickbait almost,
Right.
or is that what it's called? Yeah.
Clickbait. Yeah. You wouldn't believe.
But you're a truth seeker, right? Isn't that what a journalist is? You
Oh yeah.
seek the truth.
Yeah. And
So,
I like to do that outside of the realm of
well, that's what I
journalism.
was going to ask. Is that, do you find yourself doing that? And I should have asked, or to ask what you did for the city right now, because it might flow together better. But do you use your journalistic skills in your work with, like, how is this homelessness happening, or how is this recidivism happening, or whatever? Do you find yourself being able to use those skills?
I do. I mean, when you're a journalist, you try to get information from all the different assortment of parties that would be interested or affected by it. And working in the city, doing offender success. So that's what I'm doing right now. And I started back in January. So I've just been on the job for a few months and working from home exclusively. So I don't quite have a full grip on it, but I'm starting to get there. Working with, state officials and local officials and um, out organizations like the Fledge, St. Vincent de Paul, and the clientele, the actual returning citizens who we want to help, trying to interview them and get to the root of what they need and what they want, and making sure that it gets understood across all the different parties. I think that's really was really beneficial from journalism that translates to my current role.
Yeah. Um, so what are you finding? Like what, I don't even know if did you talk about what you do enough? I don't think you did. What is offender success?
So offender success works with people who are coming out of the state prison system on parole, and they provide services so that they can be successful and not go back or not recidivate, um, which is a technical term. There's a lot of technical terms and acronyms that I'm still getting used to. So, just in general, some statistics from before when I started, the recidivism rate was about 1 in 3 of people going back to prison, and after offender success, it's about 1 in 4. So it's really cutting that down from 33% to 25%, and making sure that that person that had otherwise would go back to prison because they didn't have the kind of support that they needed when they came out, um, doesn't, and they become a contributing member of the community. And so, we do that through 4 basic areas. There's housing, so we can provide housing to people until they become self sufficient and can move into their own housing. People generally stay there for about 90 days on average, 90 to 100, sometimes 110 on average.
Mm.
So, it takes about 3 months after you're out of jail and back into the community to really kind of get your feet on solid ground, which I think is a tremendously short amount of time
Yeah.
when you look at it in the big picture. Um,
Does that count for? So we had a guy in here earlier today. He got out after 44 years. It's a
yeah,
little more than 3 months for him. You
yeah.
think? Or yeah. So
I
it
would, I
depends,
would,
maybe.
yeah, I would imagine, they would, it would take some time to get acclimated. So yeah, you know, it definitely helps to provide that kind of housing so that they don't have to rely on maybe friends or family that
Hmm.
is a bad influence on them or a negative influence that would cause them to commit crime again.
Yeah.
Give them safe and stable housing until they can provide their own. We also provide employment opportunities. So, if people are looking for employment, um, we can refer them to specific companies that are willing to work with them. Also, develop any kind of skills that they might need in the workforce, pay for different work tools like shoes and black pants if you're you know if that's what's needed in your
Yeah.
in your job, or steel-toed boots if it's a manufacturing kind of place. um, and then also, we actually just we're getting something going right now that would actually provide asbestos abatement and lead abatement training. And those jobs actually start off at a pretty great starting wage. So, that's going to be a great opportunity for our guys to have a steady stream of income so that they can, get back to, to living independently and safely.
Yeah.
We also provide mental health services and other social support services. So, if people need kind of therapy, because they've, had trauma in the past, or maybe that was a contributing factor to their, you know, offenses. We want to make sure that they can deal with that kind of safely, and kind of move on with their life from that.
Mm-hmm.
And then social support services are just things like transportation cards, clothing, food, hygiene, all those kind of soft services that a lot of us take for granted. If we don't really have to think about where our deodorant's coming from. We'll put it on
Yeah.
the shopping list if we're out, and that happens. You know, however fast it happens, and it's not a big deal. But people coming out with nothing really really need all these things right off the bat. And actually, we're really excited to start working with St. Vincent de Paul. I was just talking to them a couple weeks ago about a program in North Carolina that we want to kind of incorporate into our program. It's called the Welcome Home Program. And the mayor of North Carolina was really involved with getting people who were re-entering their community from prison back on their feet. And so part of their program, and a big part of the program, was a welcome home box, which just had kind of non-perishable foods and all those kind of
Mm-hmm.
hygiene items that people just don't have and they need on day one. And they get it on day one, and they get a letter of support from the mayor of Durham saying, "Welcome home. We want you to be a success. We want you back in the community." And that was one of the really touching things from watching testimonials from the people that they were helping.
Yeah.
So we're working with St. Vincent de Paul to start getting those boxes up and ready for our guys. We serve about 300 a year, um, so it's not a big task for such a big organization, but they are just stellar about it, and I'm really excited to start working with them and
Yeah.
get that kind of support for our guys. So, we try to be able to fill in those really broad needs of people who are reentering from prison. Prison can be a very challenging time to
Yeah.
somebody in their life, and that's an understatement of the century right there.
Yeah.
And it can be hard to reacclimate to a part, to a city, to a community, and we just want to make sure that people know that they're welcome here, and we want them here, and we don't want them going back.
So, it's sort of related to that, and I, I, I mean this rhetorically because it's not a dig or anything. Um, what? Why should I, as a citizen, a law-abiding citizen? I've never been to prison in my life, or hypothetically, I haven't, but now I've twisted myself in this weird thing. So I've never been to prison in my life. I live in Lansing. I'm a citizen, and somebody, they get released. They have to get released to where they were sentenced. I think, is that
Yeah.
true?
Yep.
So
They can request a transfer if they have more
yeah.
support in a different county, but yeah, they're kind of automatic transfer or
So
release.
they get released to Lansing. Why should I care as a citizen to help them or to want them to be successful?
Well, it's it's just a part. You know, a lot of these people. I was just talking to somebody who is being released, and he is in his late 20s. He's been in prison since he was a teen, and he is just so ready to be a part of the community. I mean, he fell in with a bad crowd. He did. I don't want to go into specifics, but
Yeah.
he did something illegal, and he knows that it was bad. And then he got, kind of fallen in with the wrong crowd again in prison, and his sentence was extended. But he's being released right now, and he is just. I mean, when I was talking to him, he is just ready, and actually kind of a nice guy. That was my impression of him. He was, there's nothing inherently bad about people. I think, in my opinion,
Right.
a lot of it is just circumstantial, and I kind of would like to, you know, build towards a society that doesn't just say, "Oh, these people are criminals, so we can forget about it." You know, we really need to work on reintegrating people who have been, dismissed.
Hmm.
It's very sad to say, but they've just been dismissed as and written off. And I don't think anybody's really, deserving of that kind of treatment. And I think that everybody, given the chances. I mean, if you look back on your life, you law-abiding citizen, look at the chances that were afforded to you that other people may not have. And this is our
Yeah.
program is so focused,
Yeah.
on making people stable and making them, law abiding. I mean, part of our program, a major part of our program is just employment and getting people, working again, getting earning an honest buck. I think a lot of it is just the fact that they weren't able to earn an honest buck, and
Yeah.
being able to establish themselves and kind of invest in themselves and kind of value themselves.
Yeah.
I think is a major
Well,
stride to rehabilitation. You
well,
know,
let's stick with the guy that you talked to, and just
okay,
kind of use him as an example.
yeah.
Should we give him a name? Like
Uh,
we can give him a
Bill,
name, Jerry,
let's go
Bill.
with Bill.
That's funny because I almost said Bill. All right, so we'll go with Bill. So Bill, he's been in prison 10, 12 years. Um, he probably got some skill training in prison. Is that true? Do you know?
He um he actually did not. He'll be working on his
Oh,
GED when he gets released.
okay.
Yeah,
Usually
although
it
a lot of people do get vocational village training. Either
yeah,
electrician, masons. Those are just the carpentry. A lot of the skill trades are being
yeah.
taught with corrections. Corrections has actually done a great job expanding those kind of opportunities to incarcerated people, so that they can have a skill when they get out. Including just GED training and things like that.
All right, so Bill needs a little more work, but most people do.
Yes.
And
Yes.
Bill was in prison for 12 years. That's I don't know, what is it? Like 40 grand a year to house a prisoner,
I don't know the specifics
right?
on it, but that does sound right. I think I remember reading that it was more expensive to house a prisoner than it was to send someone to college.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So he's costing us money if you want to look at it that way. I don't really care about that. He spent 10 to 12 years, maybe screwed up a couple times, but he learned his lesson and he's out now. We sentenced him. He paid his debt. He should be free, right? I mean,
Oh, he should be free,
right.
but that doesn't mean that we just let him. We say we wash our hands of it.
Right. Oh, no, I, yes. Sorry, I'm on your side on this. I want to make sure that's
It
clear.
sounds like. It sounds like.
Um, what I meant though is that he should be done with that part of his life.
Right.
He did his time. He made his commitment to us. He was punished. We're even now. He paid his debt to society. So that's one reason, right? It's an American thing. It's part of our Constitution. It's part of our laws
Right.
that this is what he deserves. And then when he comes out, like you're getting at, so I don't know how many entrepreneurs I know who
Uh-huh.
came out of prison with this idea that was so great that they wanted to uh, get involved with everything. And they want to be almost more than people who haven't been in prison yet want to contribute. I mean, I see that all the time, and I don't know that people know that. Do you have any,
Yeah.
like, yeah, tell us
Prison
something
affords a
about that.
lot of time to think, and when you have that time to think, you think about way you can make things better. A lot of them. I've met a lot of former prisoners who are interested in starting a nonprofit. If they identify the kind of challenges that they faced growing up and how they kind of got in the position that they were in, they want to. A lot of them want to prevent that from happening to other people, which I think is just great.
And then, the other thing is that, we talk about housing and employment and transportation and all of that, these kind of basic needs that now start to, it's not just the offender success program within the city, it's economic development, it's the housing groups, it's the parks and rec, it's everybody, right? We all kind of have to play a role in building a community that not only accepts everyone, but also um, has the opportunity for everyone. Because, like you said, maybe the lack of opportunity was the reason they went to prison in the first place.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm a big believer in that. They say a tide lifts all boats, but if you anchor a boat with a short
Mhm.
lead, the tide's just gonna sink it.
I was going to
So
say some people don't have boats and it drowns them. But yeah, the same metaphor is a little bit broken in my opinion too. So, you're doing this. So you're coming to journalism. You start at Haven House. You spend a bunch of time, or 7 years, I think, or five,
six,
seven,
yeah,
6 years,
yeah.
and you now are helping offenders. So you've morphed from just this hard ass smoking cigar journalist to the softer kind of trying to figure out why is all this happening. What would you kind of say your mission is right now?
I would say,
And
my mission is, um, I would say, to have people invest in the community, in Lansing. I see a lot of, um, kind of. I have a lot of affection to handyman work,
mm,
houses and things like that. And I just see so many buildings, so many residences kind of run down in Lansing, and I want to just see kind of an investment of people in the Lansing community, um, to kind of revitalize it.
so that seems like a whole nother show that I would love to talk. Do you have a vision of how that would work? Like,
Well, I think a lot of it goes to kind of how, I was raised. In when we lived in Chicago, my my family was actually evicted, foreclosed on, when I was very young, and we kind of, went from owning our own condo to renting a very small apartment and renting a bigger apartment, and then kind of moving into a fixer upper, and then fixing that fixer upper up, and then kind of, just kind of following that track, back from kind of, you know a very hard place, over the course of, you know 15 or 20 years, and back to a place where you're financially stable.
mm,
So I see that as a model a lot of the times, especially with the families that I was working with who were homeless. I remember one family, the wife was very upset that they were moving into, an apartment that she felt was too small for them, and
mm.
it probably was, but it was a place for them to stay. And I kind of told her my story, and I said you're not going to live there forever. You're going to live there for a couple years, maybe 3 or 4, and you're going to save up, and you're going to find a better job while you're living there, and you're going to, build your income and pay off your debt and get into a better place. But today you're moving there, and doesn't have to be where that's not going to be where you stay.
Yeah.
If you follow kind of the program. Haven House had a great, follow up program too. with a lot of counseling, even after they moved in for up to a year.
Well, that's
So
another reason that I love them, because that's
yeah,
a very critical important component of keeping housing. You can
yeah,
find someone a house. It's not easy, but you can.
yeah,
And then staying in it is the hard part.
yeah.
Yeah.
And with the clientele that I work with now, the parolees and the offenders that are, the people who are coming out of prison, just getting them taking those baby steps, making sure that they have a place to be, a job to go to, making sure that, their basic needs are being taken care of, until they can get established. I find there's a lot of satisfaction working, kind of with those people,
Hmm.
when they're at their lowest, and kind of taking them back up to that next step.
Yeah.
And long term wise, developing them, into, homeowners, or, entrepreneurs, something like that. It starts with this.
So right now, with you see a lot of like restaurants and small businesses that are saying that they're understaffed because of unemployment or stimulus checks or whatever. Have you seen an increase in the number of employers that are willing to employ an ex-offender or a ex-felon?
I'm not exactly sure. I would have
Okay.
to ask the vendors, who oversee that aspect of the
Yeah.
program. A lot of the work is actually contracted out. I kind of just coordinate between everybody and make sure everyone's on the same page. I do know that some of our offenders are at different restaurants. I won't say which ones for obvious reasons, but a lot of them actually do go into manufacturing, or like at, like GM or something like
Yeah.
that. Um, you know, so there's a real variety of places, that can take our guys.
So, you know, can employers, I guess, discriminate against um, ex-offenders? Can housing discriminate against it? I think it happens. I don't know if it's discrimination or what the loophole is there. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, they can. I mean, Michigan hasn't banned the box yet. There's a lot of other places that have, the box that you check
Hmm.
off when
Yeah.
you're asked if you've ever committed a crime, a felony. Um, so that can be a part of the screening process. Michigan's a right to work state, so there's not a lot of oversight that you can impose on the hiring
Yeah.
process or the firing process. Um, you know, and as far as housing, yeah, a lot of places, especially the larger apartment complexes, will run a background check. I interviewed some, um, different rental places around town, um, that that do that kind of thing, and I would ask them, would our guy qualify? And they would mostly say no, but I'm not sure why, because they kind of send the background check off to,
Mm.
some screener, and then they come back,
And say
not
no.
qualified. Right.
Yeah.
So, a lot of the time it's, the independent landlords, who are willing to give somebody a second chance, especially, I mean, when you look at our guys, they get so much support for employment. All their employment's verified, so they know how much they're making. You just have to find a landlord that's willing to work with you, and that can be hard, but they exist. They definitely exist.
Yeah.
I've spoken to a few of them, and employers too. Some of them aren't going to hire a convict. Some of them, or an ex-convict, and some of them are. It's important not to lie on it on your application. If they ask, then answer truthfully, so that you're not, wasting your time with them,
Yeah.
because usually they'll catch up to you. But, yeah, I mean, it's it's a barrier. It probably is a lot better than what it had been. I think there's a lot of improvements being made. Um, we've done some outreach breakfasts with employers before the pandemic, where an employer would talk about, hiring our guys to other prospective employers around town. And it's kind of on it's on a case by case basis.
Yeah.
You're gonna give a guy a second chance, then you're the kind of person who would give a guy a second chance.
There, I think there's tax credits though too, right? If you hire a felon, is there something?
I'm not familiar with any kind of tax credits, and how they would relate with. I would have to check in on that. Like I said, I just started it a few months ago, so I'm not totally on board with every
and
single.
and I
thing.
also promised you I wouldn't come at you sideways with any weird questions, and now I feel bad.
No,
So sorry,
no, don't
sorry
worry.
about that.
No, it's okay.
So what's something you do every damn day to kind of push this mission forward of building Lansing back up? I mean, that's what I heard. I'm paraphrasing,
Yeah.
but the houses and the repair and all of that.
Well,
But
I'm
also
in my
just being a badass person. I think you are.
well, I'm in my mid 30s, so I've realized that if I don't stretch every day, then it's going to catch up to me. I'm not going to be able to do what I want to do. So yeah, that's one of the things I do. I stretch every day. Try to take a bike ride or at least a walk every day. I take longer rides on the weekends. I've got this great South Lansing loop that goes up Pleasant Grove after the river trail.
Oh,
It's about
nice.
25 miles. So if you ever see me or see somebody on a ride down Pleasant Grove on the weekend, that might be me. Um, and then you got to take care of yourself before you take care of other people. You got
Yeah.
to make sure that you're ready to 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 help. You got to help yourself before you can help other people, or else you're going to get burned out. That's what I say to everybody that I work with, and anybody who's getting in on this kind of social work scene, the kind of social services. Make sure that you're not burning yourself out, especially during this pandemic. It can be very hard.
So I've asked 240 people what they do every damn day. You're the 240th show, and there's two things that I profess that will keep you young. One of them is to bleed every once in a while, fall down off a skateboard, just bleed a little bit, get that regenerative stuff going. And the second one is stretching. And you're the first person. I mean, people might have said yoga or whatever like that,
Uh-huh.
but stretching is so very important. Keep promoting that. I'm promoting it right now.
All
Touch
right.
your
Yeah.
toes, man. Touch your toes every day, and it will extend
Reach,
your life.
reach for the ceiling. Touch
Yes.
your toes.
Yes. So
Yeah.
thank you for saying that. Um, okay, so I knew that we were going to go a little bit long because you're on a subject that I'm just absolutely passionate about, both the Haven House and the offender access. But we daisy chain these shows together. And yesterday on the show, I had my mom because it was Mother's Day and all of that. And she wanted me to ask you, um, where's the most exciting or fun place you've ever traveled to? Rockford? No, I'm just
Yes, skiing. Yes, can and skiing. No, I think I'm a huge history buff, and I really it kind of started when I was very young with the Civil War, and the most kind of just like the most exciting place that I've ever been to for me, and most people are going to share this, but was Harper's Ferry. I don't know if you're familiar with kind of the run up to the Civil War, but the raid at Harper's Ferry was a precipitous event, and just being there and kind of being on the ground and kind of not reading about it, but like breathing the air. It's and it's a beautiful country too. It's in the Appalachians, kind of
Yeah.
right where West Virginia ends between Maryland and Virginia. and it was a great place. Even though it was overcast when I went, it was just really something special for me to see personally, and I really enjoyed that. That was a good trip.
So a big history buff.
Oh yeah, yeah, too much.
Yeah, yeah. I have been in that area before, and it's you could just feel it. It's actually like when you go to Europe, you can feel the history. You don't know what it is, but you can
You
feel
trip
it.
over it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and there's sometimes I've thought in the U.S. you don't feel that yet. It's not old enough yet, but in these places where you're talking about, you can feel
yeah,
it.
yeah. It is.
Gettysburg,
Yeah,
you can feel it.
yeah. Took a whole tour. Gettysburg, Manassas. Uh, did Harper's Ferry. Yep. It was a good spring break.
Yeah. Was it during school?
Yeah, it was in college. Yep.
Oh,
Instead of
nice.
going down to Cabo, I went out east.
You didn't want to go play beer pong for 8 days and
Mm, nah,
yeah.
no, I do that. I already did that on campus. Why would I go
Oh,
on
yeah.
vacation and do it?
That's another tangent we were not going to go on right now. Tomorrow on the show, I have a woman named Vanessa Rivera, and
Mhm.
she's a teacher, but she also is raising an autistic child, and she's going to talk about her experiences with that. What question would you like me to pass to her?
Well, I hope it's not too cliche, but what superpower would you most like to have?
And it's not too cliche. That's definitely for sure. But I think she's going to love that question. She's going to rattle off probably six of them because it's not
So
always
hard.
easy. Yeah. Um, so I turn that on you though. So what superpower would you like to have?
Oh man. Well, let's think. Um, well, I like to bike a lot, and that always has felt like flying to me. So maybe flying. I would like to see
Mm,
how that would actually stack up to bicycling.
yeah.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say like time travel or something like that as a historian or
Well,
as a
that would be
history buff.
interesting, but then I'd have to learn all those languages, or that would stick out like a sore thumb.
You're right. Time traveling would suck. You'd like pop in and they'd be like, arrest that guy. He looks weird.
I'd probably get the bubonic plague or something. It would not be a good scene.
Take your mask, man. You're
Oh yeah, the
prepared now.
masks. I
Yeah.
could introduce masks.
You'd be like a hero and completely disrupt all of time continuum. And
Yeah,
yeah, all right, you're
it'd be
right.
worth it if people would be
Flying's
accepting of masks.
flying's better, I think. Um, what is happiness to you, and are you happy?
Um, I think that's kind of a loaded question. I don't see happiness as kind of a stagnant state of being. There's no way that someone can just be blanket happy. I really see it as like a yin yang thing. You don't understand happiness until you understand unhappiness, and I love it. And when you allow yourself the emotional, capacity to be unhappy on days, and you don't beat yourself up over it, and maybe you examine why you're unhappy, then you can look forward to the good days, the happy days. There's going to be sunny days and there's going to be rainy days, and I'm I I'm happy now. I'm happy to be interviewed. I like to be recognized for what I do and who I am. So that makes me happy. Yes, I'm happy. Um, but as far as happiness goes, you like I said, you can't understand what happiness until you're unhappy. And I think if you can allow yourself to be unhappy, that's when you're happy.
So remember in the prep for the show when I said there's no wrong or right answer?
Uh-huh.
That's the right answer. I've asked, we started asking this question about halfway through when we got to about 182 shows. We're going to 365. And on World Happiness Day, the first person and the only person said, "No, I'm not happy." And I found that ironic. But everybody else has said, "Yes, I'm happy." And you just said, "I'm on a freaking podcast. What am I going to do? Be not happy?" So you don't really have a choice. And I was wondering, I asked someone a couple of days ago what they thought the bias was, because there's obviously bias, because without hell, there is no heaven, right? You can't have
without the bad.
Yeah. You will never know what a good day looks like unless you've had some bad days.
Yeah.
And I love your answer. So I don't know. You get a gold star or something. There's no rewards here. So.
Read for your audience. Read The Giver if you haven't yet. It's great.
The Giver.
Yeah. Yep.
I always recommend Kafka's Man's Search for Meaning too. When you look at, he was relatively happy in the concentration camp, but it was because he found who he was and all of that. But The Giver, I'm definitely promoting that without reading it. Or, on Twitter, if you don't read the article now, they kind of interfere with you sharing it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think that's a good feature.
I'm not huge on Twitter.
Yeah.
But so if you share an article having not read it, it will cramp it.
It'll warn you. It'll be like, "You never clicked on this. Are you sure you want to share it?" And I thought that was awesome. I'm also embarrassed to know it.
What's next?
I'm also embarrassed that I have to admit that I did this. But I just knew I was going to love the article, and it was going to conform to all of my worldviews. What gives you hope?
What gives me hope? I think when helping somebody and they come to me with a problem that they're having, that gives me hope, because they're not just keeping it to themselves. They're reaching out. They know that they need help, and they wanna get it. And I think that's what gives me hope. I think it's the when people can kind of take responsibility for themselves and their self-improvement. And I work on that all the time, trying to reach out to people for help. So big I just this past couple of years, I've been kind of reaching out to my family members, where I hadn't before, and it's just been a great help. And when somebody looks to me like that, it just gives me hope for the future, for them and for me and for everybody.
I love that. It's within, as soon as you can be vulnerable, you will find strength. And until you can be vulnerable, that strength is going to be elusive. And the simple metaphor is a sports metaphor, where maybe you're lifting weights and you have to hurt and you have to have somebody helping you, but sooner or later you get strong. And unless you do that, you might not get strong. So love that answer too.
It won't happen by itself.
Did we forget to talk about anything? Like, is there any advice you can give us as a community, that if we are dealing with a returning citizen or an ex-offender, I don't know. Now it's seeming obvious to me to be compassionate, but I think there's something maybe bigger. What can we do as a community to help more?
When you say, ex-offender, I think people do want to help, but I think what kind of makes them hesitant to do that is, being burned in the past. Somebody that they tried to help either didn't want it or did, I don't know, just failed, or so they feel like they're kind of chasing after cars, something like that. And I think it's important to realize that just because somebody is ex-offender or on parole doesn't mean that they are a parolee.
Right.
That they are they're the same as the guy that we talked to last time. Everybody is going to be handling this in their own individual way. And just because, somebody, we deal with absconsions, people who violate their paroles, just go off the radar, and that's going to happen. But it's important not to let that affect the person that you're talking to, the person that is wanting or needing your help. So I think that's probably the parting parting thought is to not let that bias that you may have consciously or unconsciously, affect working with somebody.
Charles, thank you for bringing your skill set that you gathered through your journalism and all your life experiences, but your journalism degree, your Haven House, into the offender success program, because I think that type of empathy and that type of understanding is super important. It's in all of our best interests to make our community successful. We don't want to cheer against our community. I can't even comprehend it. And thank you so much for coming on the show and being a guest, because we really need, I told you before the show, and it sounds, I say this to several people, maybe too many people, but you're a hero of the community. You're a hero of mine, because you're fighting for the right people and you're fighting the right fight. And thank you for coming to Lansing from way over there in Ada. Glad Amway didn't scoop you away.
Well, thank you for having me, Jerry. I think this is a great way to reach out to the community, and I'm looking forward to kind of networking and getting to know the larger group of people, the real great support system that's going on here.
Yeah, we'll get back together and we'll keep talking. So. Also want to give a shout out to Luna Brown and Katie Kelly with Power and Passion, and with Marshall with the Mid-Michigan Energy Co-op. And thanks for commenting and all that. Sorry we didn't respond to it all. And we'll talk to you all soon. See you every damn day at 2 p.m. See you later. See you, Charles.
Thanks. Have a good one.